Our story begins with a reporter, shivering violently in the brutal cold, struggles to hold his microphone as frost builds on it with every second. He warns that temperatures will keep dropping with no indication of stopping anytime soon. Still, he urges people not to lose hope. Clenching his fist, he tries to sound confident, claiming the government hasn't abandoned its citizens and that unity will help them survive this crisis. But before he can continue his speech, a frozen airplane suddenly crashes into the city, smashing straight through him and his crew. Elsewhere, a man watches this final broadcast on one of the last working TVs left in the country. The screen flickers as the crash happens, then cuts to static. No more news. Inside his apartment, Han Fong sits in a mess that shows someone who tried to survive but eventually gave up. He didn't bother cleaning the little supplies he had left. Boxes of useless items and nearly empty provisions are scattered near the entrance. Suddenly, loud knocking echoes from outside. Someone is calling his name in panic. After hearing it repeatedly, Han Fong stands up from his freezing apartment. He picks up a steel bat modified with nails, dried blood still visible on it, and walks toward the door. He's thin, wearing thick winter clothes, but it's still not enough to block the cold. He carefully looks through the peephole. The person outside shocks him. It's a woman he knows from before the Ice Age. She's wearing heavy winter clothes, but standing outside has left her face red and her body shaking uncontrollably. Han Fong opens the door, slightly flustered. Her name is Hyona, and he doesn't know why she's here. Still holding the bat, he tells her to come inside where it's safer. The outside world has already become dangerous and lawless. The moment she steps in, she suddenly grabs his collar and pulls him into a kiss. It happens so fast her hat falls off. Han Fong is surprised, but doesn't pull away, his face turning red. The kiss lasts longer than expected. When they separate, both of them are breathing heavily. Han Fong asks what got into her, why she would suddenly kiss him like that. Hyona, still catching her breath, says she realized something. He's the one she truly loves. Tears start forming in her eyes as she tells him he's the person she was meant to be with. It took this crisis to understand who really matters, who will stay no matter what. To prove it, she takes his hands and presses them against her chest so he can feel her fast heartbeat. She says she's willing to do anything to be with him. Hearing that word makes him lose all reason. Every red flag disappears. Hyona presses closer, pulling him in as her thighs press against him. He can't think clearly. The world outside is frozen, but he's heating up. Han Fong looks into her eyes as she gently touches his face. He says her words mean everything to him, but maybe the doorway isn't the right place. Hyona shushes him. She tells him to close his eyes and feel the moment. Han Fong does it. He closes his eyes and asks what happens next. But suddenly, another man bursts in through the door. Without hesitation, he swings a blunt weapon at Han Fong's head. Han Fong doesn't see it coming. The hit crushes his skull instantly. Blood splatters everywhere. Hyona and the man step inside. She pretends to be shocked, but the man scoffs and tells her to stop acting. She already knew this was how it would go. The world has already fallen apart. One less person to share supplies with doesn't matter. They start searching the apartment for anything useful. Han Fong isn't dead yet. He lay on the freezing floor, his body shaking uncontrollably from the pain. The blood pouring from his head wound froze the moment it touched the cold air. His thoughts were unclear. He didn't fully understand what had just happened. He couldn't move. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment he would finally die. The last thing he saw was the man and Hyona standing a short distance away from him. They were laughing together, flirting. The man touched her in ways Han Fong could only imagine before, whispering that he would reward her for such a perfect performance, praising her acting for making the whole plan work. As Han Fong's eyes slowly closed for the last time, the hatred inside him grew unbearably heavy. He swore in his heart, if there was another life, he would never become a lovesick fool again. Then everything went dark. In the endless void, Han Fong began to see small droplets of light. At first, it was only a tiny speck, but it slowly grew larger and brighter. As the light expanded, Han Fong began to question what was happening. Without thinking, he reached out toward it. His arm looked strange, translucent, like it didn't belong to a real body anymore. The warmth of the light pulled him in. After enduring the freezing cold of the real world, the glow felt comforting. Could this be heaven? But suddenly, the golden light shifted into a deep crimson red. What kind of heaven looked like that? Before he could react, his body began to tear apart. It felt like he was being fed into a grinder. His limbs were shredded piece by piece. Nothing ever went right for him. The crimson light quickly covered his entire body. He let out a painful scream as his form broke apart, fragment by fragment. The darkness filled with the scattered pieces of his existence. And Han Fong disappeared, still feeling the pain of being torn apart down to the smallest level. He suddenly woke up, gasping, covered in sweat, screaming. The pain felt too real. He had just been tricked into closing his eyes, had his head smashed in for being careless, died a miserable death, entered a strange void, got lured by a light, and was torn apart completely. And now, he didn't know where he was. He looked around. Sunlight was shining through his balcony. His bed was soft and clean. Fresh air moved his curtains gently. This place was nothing like that frozen world. It took him about 30 minutes to process everything that had just happened. For those 30 minutes, he simply sat there, staring at the peaceful view outside his apartment. He couldn't believe the sun was shining again. He had missed its warmth, missed its light. He thought he would never feel something like this again. Finally, he checked the date. It was the morning of June 28th. From what he remembered, the Ice Age would begin on July 15th. He was supposed to die after being ambushed, but now he had been brought back, half a month before the end of the world. In other words, he had been reborn, given a second chance. But aside from his memories, something else was different. Something strange was happening inside his body. Ever since he woke up, a red glow had been wrapped around his right hand. No matter what he did, it wouldn't disappear. It didn't hurt. It just felt warm. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but the glow stayed. Later, after standing on the balcony for too long, he suddenly sneezed. As he wiped his nose, he noticed something. The red glow had changed. It turned green. Then something even stranger happened. The hand covering green light started growing, stretching longer, as if his bones, flesh, and skin were being pulled apart. Anyone would panic seeing that. Shocked and confused, Han Fong rushed back inside and slammed the balcony door shut. Thankfully, his hand returned to normal, but the green glow was still there. It didn't disappear. Beams of light were faintly coming off it. How could something like this even be explained? After what happened outside, the glow began shrinking again slowly. Then it expanded, then shrank again. The green light behaved unpredictably, nothing like the stable red glow from before. Sitting down on his couch, Han Fong suddenly felt extremely tired. Even though he hadn't done much, his body felt drained. This had to be connected to the green light. Frustrated, he started moving his arm around, trying to understand what was happening. Then a thought hit him. Wasn't this just like those stories he liked to read? He immediately ran to the kitchen and grabbed his sharpest knife. In those stories, the main character always gains special powers after being reborn. Maybe he had one too. He held the knife, posing and waiting for something to happen. But nothing changed. After a few minutes, he scratched his head awkwardly. Nothing reacted. While he was busy testing his powers, he ignored the growing exhaustion and hunger. Now his stomach was rumbling badly. He was starving. Unfortunately, his past self hadn't stocked any proper food. There was nothing to eat. If he didn't find something soon, he might collapse. Then he remembered something. A jar of roasted soybeans in the living room. Not a full meal, but enough to hold him for now. He grabbed one without thinking, using his right hand. Forgetting about the green glow, he tossed the soybean into his mouth. And instantly, a smoky explosion burst out in front of his face. The smoke covered his upper body. To his shock, he was suddenly chewing on a plant stalk. It had sprouted inside his mouth. He could feel the roots on his tongue while the stem extended outward. He quickly pulled it out. The plant left an earthy taste behind. Of everything that had happened, this was one of the strangest. He just wanted a snack. Even stranger, he didn't feel hungry anymore. The exhaustion was gone too. Looking at his hand, the green glow had disappeared. It might be connected to what just happened. He examined the plant, opening one of its pods. Inside was a fresh sprout, completely normal. Maybe this was his ability, an unbelievable discovery. But right now, he couldn't focus on studying it. He still needed supplies. That mattered more. For the first time in a long while, Han Fong stepped outside his apartment again. He felt the sunlight touch his skin. He could hear birds. People were walking around like normal, minding their own business in the commercial district. It felt unreal compared to the frozen world he remembered. As he walked, he went over everything in his head. First, the red glow turned green. Then the green light could stretch and shrink his limbs. It drained his energy. And when he touched the soybean, it grew into a plant. Looking at his right hand, he had more questions than answers. Just what kind of power was this? While thinking, he kept walking casually toward his destination, until he heard a familiar voice calling his name. A voice that once would have made his heart melt, but now only made his blood boil. At first, he didn't realize it and turn around to see who it was. It was her, Hyona, the same woman who got him killed. She smiled brightly, her makeup perfect, hiding her true nature. She asked if he was out shopping too. She acted like it was fate that they met. Han Fong hadn't fully processed everything yet, but seeing her again brought back all the bitterness from his last moments. For 3 years, he had done everything for her, even knowing he was nothing more than a backup. Before his emotions could take over, Han Fong pinched himself and forced himself to stay calm. Now wasn't the time for revenge. Not yet. First, he needed supplies. Otherwise, he would suffer again when the Ice Age came. Hyona stepped closer and waved her hand in front of his face, asking why he was spacing out. This had never happened before. Normally, just hearing her voice would have been enough to make him lose his mind. Han Fong swallowed his anger and forced a smile. He apologized and said she looked especially beautiful today. That was more like what she expected. Hyona laughed softly, clearly pleased. She teased him, asking when he learned to talk like that. Thinking she had him under control again, she used her usual charm. With a cute expression, she invited him to go shopping together. But Han Fong had already reached his limit. He turned and walked away, saying he couldn't go with her today.
Emotional, damn it!
Hyona froze in place. That wasn't how things were supposed to happen. She was supposed to get him to spend money on her. As he walked away, Han Fong couldn't help but admit her technique was still impressive, but it wouldn't work on him anymore. He went straight to the place he needed, Waldemar Shopping Plaza, the largest and most well-stocked supermarket in the area. When the Ice Age hits, this place would be emptied overnight. In his previous life, no one ever found out who cleared it out. Han Fong grabbed a cart and started filling it with supplies. Food, clothes, medicine, daily necessities, anything useful. He even checked online guides for apocalypse preparation. It was a lot to get, but then reality hit. His money. He only had about 15,000. That wasn't nearly enough. He needed much more to survive comfortably. Right then, a notification popped up on his phone. A loan offer. Up to 168,000. At that moment, something clicked in his mind. Why worry about debt when the world is about to end? A thought flashed through his mind. There was no need to panic about money. How could he forget something so simple? With how easy technology had made things, this was basically an infinite money trick. There were tons of loan apps that approved cash with barely any requirements. They were predatory, sure, but that didn't matter. Once the Ice Age started, he wouldn't be around to pay anything back. Out in the commercial district, someone was kicking an empty soda can along the sidewalk in frustration. It was Hyona. Her face was full of anger. Today had not gone the way she wanted. One of her usual easy targets had actually refused to take her shopping. She had dressed up for nothing. She clenched her teeth, thinking about how Han Fong just walked away. To her, he was just a pathetic loser, someone who didn't even have a car. She swore in her mind that she wouldn't bother being nice to him anymore. Her thoughts were interrupted by loud honking from the road. She turned to look. A brand new truck was pulling up. It looked fresh out of the dealership, shiny and expensive. The window rolled down, and Han Fong was in the driver's seat. He stopped right in front of her. Hyona's expression instantly changed. Seeing the car, her previous thoughts disappeared. All she saw now was money.
Women.
Han Fong stepped out casually. When she asked if the truck was his, he confirmed it without hesitation. He even made up a story, saying his father had been doing